Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam satu Malaysia. Saudara Kai selaku moderator, Saudara Wan Firdaus, seterusnya saudara-saudari yang saya hormati sekalian. Firstly, thank you for inviting me to be on stage to share a few thoughts. This is not going to be a keynote address. I've decided to make it informal. We are pressed for time. We've got about 30 minutes. I will speak for about 10 minutes and then we'll have a Q&A. Firstly, I would like to thank those who drafted me a speech to read today. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to read the text of the speech in the interest of time. Secondly, thank you for allowing me to be here to share a few thoughts about ASEAN. As I came in, I was very impressed with the list of names here. As Minister of Trade and Industry, I wish I have the same influence as you do. It is very clear to me that you're a very influential bunch of young people. The ability to assemble all these big names, PW and Khazanah, CIMB, I think all this goes to show that this is a force to be reckoned with. Therefore, my heartiest congratulations to all of you. As I said, as MITI Minister, I hope I am in the same position in the ability to attract some of the biggest names in Malaysia to collaborate with you. I would like to begin by sharing with you what I've been doing in the last 1 week. Yesterday, I chaired a business forum. I was on stage with the Korean President Lee, a very big group, about 400 participants, 300 from Malaysia, 100 from Korea. I spoke about 10 minutes and he spoke about half an hour. President Lee, as you know, he spoke in Korean. He can speak good English, but it's typical of many Koreans and Japanese. They went to Harvard, all these places. But when it comes for them to give a speech, they will speak in their own language. So perhaps this afternoon, I should speak in Bahasa Malaysia. But anyway, he was very bullish about Malaysia. As you know, he was at one time the boss of Hyundai. And in the 1980s, he was commuting up and down between Seoul and Penang and Kuala Lumpur. He was in charge of building the Penang Bridge. And he knows Malaysia inside out. And I just want to share with you how bullish this man is about Malaysia. We've been telling him we want to learn about global Korea, how you build Hyundai. I've been informed that they built the biggest cruise ships in the world with a capacity of 6,500 passengers. Korea was nowhere 30 years ago. As you know, Korea came here to learn from Malaysia 30, 40 years ago. But now they are 3 times in terms of per capita income, probably 4 times higher than us. They have surpassed us by so many times. So we've been telling them, we want to learn from you. And he came yesterday to tell all of us that he's here to learn from Malaysia. And of course, it was very pleasant to many of us, including us politicians, to hear these very complimentary remarks coming from head of state. And he was talking about the reforms which the government had put in place. The Malaysia he knew in the 80s and the Malaysia that he's been told in the last few months, few years, he thinks we've got good potential in ASEAN. So these words of praise came from the president. Of course, you can say he's a diplomat, but I thought I should share with you warm words of encouragement coming from head of state, head of government. I think that goes to show that we have the potential. And then last Tuesday I was in Singapore. I had a few programs, one of which was to address a crowd of about 400 to talk about the economic transformation program. And some of these gentlemen in front of me were there as well. And I just want to share with you the warming up of relations between Malaysia and Singapore. There was a time when we had differences, political and many other differences, but there's this realization that there's a lot of synergy between Malaysia and Singapore. And I must tell you, among the business community in particular, there's a deep commitment to collaborate between Malaysia and Singapore. And this is an example of how ASEAN synergies can be exploited for mutual benefit. As you know, most of our tourists come from Singapore, more than half of tourists. Last year, we had 23 million. Yeah? And it is inevitable that we need to develop a good partnership with Singapore. And many of the biggest investors in Johor come from Singapore. So the relationship in Singapore and Malaysia, there's been ups and downs, but lately there's been a warming up of relations, and I see a good potential going forward in terms of developing closer collaboration between Singapore and Malaysia, and of course, this will have a lot of benefits to young people like you. I got there on Monday evening, and it's normal with my schedule. I would meet Malaysian CEOs who work in Singapore, and there are many of them. Thousands or tens of thousands of them. I met about 15 of them. And they shared with me with some frankness, what's happening across the causeway. And I must say the mood is a lot different now. And in my view, this is one example of how we can collaborate, and to the mutual benefit of Singaporeans and Malaysians. That's probably the good part of it. On the other, of course, you have the downside as well. You have Indonesia, and the problems we've been having with Indonesia, the flag burning and all those things we've been hearing in the last few months. They are very unhappy with the way we're treating the mates and many other incidents in the past 1 month. And this has had some impact on business. This has had some impact, although we remain very close. Malaysia and Indonesia, we enjoy the best of ties at the highest level, we're very close. But at a lower level, in the villages, we've been told that many Indonesians do not like Malaysia for the way we treat the maids, the alleged mistreatment of some of the Indonesian citizens. So, on one hand, you have, a convergence of interest. On the one hand, you see ASEAN countries coming together. On the other, you have some downside as well. And that's as to be expected. And what we need to do is to manage the tension and the situation as best as we can. ASEAN can be divided in economic terms into 3 groups of countries. The first, of course, is the developed part of ASEAN would be Singapore. Singapore's per capita income is more than 5 times that of Malaysia now. It's more than 5 times that of Malaysia. There was a time when Malaysia and Singapore was the same level of development. There was no difference between Penang and Singapore. But Singapore has gone far ahead. So Singapore is in that category alone as a developed nation among the ASEAN 10. And then we have the middle income countries in ASEAN. That were Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia. These are the emerging market economies in ASEAN. And the lowest rung will be countries like Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia. Vietnam is coming up. So one challenge we have in ASEAN, we are at different levels of development. If you compare ASEAN with EU, for example, members of EU are at about the same stage of development. They enjoy high per capita incomes. Of course, they have a common currency. There's a lot of trade between members of the EU. There's a lot of cross-border investments. In the last 10 years, for example, there's been a lot of Germans who are investing within Europe. They still invest in Malaysia, in ASEAN, but because the attraction of Europe has been enhanced as a result of the formation of the European Union, the greater integration. So in Europe, there is no problem. The problems we're facing are different from the problems we're facing in ASEAN. So one challenge we have in ASEAN, how to deal with countries at different levels of development. In discharging my duty as trade minister, I'm in charge of trade policy, for example. We have, of course, signed the ASEAN Free Trade Agreement, 1st January 2010, no more tariffs among the ASEAN 6. 2015, all the other 4 countries, namely Myanmar, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos will have 0 tariffs, as what we have between the more developed countries of ASEAN. So one challenge we have in ASEAN, how to deal with these different levels of development. Having said that, of course, we have come a long way. ASEAN, as you must have heard in the morning, started as a political initiative, trying to bring down the temperature, trying to reduce tension, trying to get the countries to work together. That was the genesis of ASEAN. But as ASEAN evolved, we went into trade, we went into economics and finance, and now we talk about the ASEAN community by 2015. There are challenges, but there's a deep commitment on the part of all member countries to bring about this union of 10 countries by 2015. When we talk about union, of course, we're not talking about EU. We have trade, we have investment, we have goods. In trade, we've done very well. Zero tariffs on almost every item between Malaysia and Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore. On investment, we've not done as well. Of course, we have the likes of CIMB, Maybank, Sime Darby, Khazanah, which has been investing in many other ASEAN countries. Malaysian companies have been very active. But you look at many other countries. Indonesia, for example, there are many rich Indonesians, a number of big Indonesian conglomerates, but they've not been investing in many other ASEAN countries. So in goods, it's not been a big hassle. It's not been a big problem. Yeah? We have brought down barriers, and trade is about 25%. Intra-ASEAN trade, which is one reason why we form ASEAN, is about 25%. So there's been a lot of progress on that front. The flows of investments, there's been some progress, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. The other challenge will be connectivity. Connectivity will be rail, Kunming, as John was talking earlier, and many AirAsia. That's happening in a small way, but there's more that needs to be done. But the biggest challenge is the flow of people, flow of professionals. That's the biggest challenge we're facing. I think, by and large, I think it's true to say that we worry. We are not too comfortable in accepting foreign talent, for example. That's the current mindset in Malaysia. Although we're beginning to open up, we set up the talent corporation. The lawyers, for example, we've been talking to them in the last many years to open up legal services in Malaysia. They've been telling me, how can you open up legal services in Malaysia to Singapore and Thailand when the flow of lawyers between Peninsula and Sabah, Sarawak is so very restrictive? How can you bring about the freer flow of professional services? So that's a challenge we have. Going forward, we are now dealing with this issue of how to encourage the flow of professional talent. And for that, we have to build capacity. In Malaysia, we got to get the best people, the best talent. I think the mindset is still, if you open up your construction services to foreigners, your architecture firms, if you allow 100% ownership, then this will be detrimental to the interests of our young people. So that's the challenge that we're facing now. So ladies and gentlemen, we've come a long way. In trade, investment, we are lagging behind. Professional services, we've not been doing too well. But I think going forward, there's a big future for young people. I mean, it's happening. The pace of change has been quite slow, but I would like to assure you that we're working very hard at the highest levels to make sure that one day there will be a better flow of trade, better flow of goods, better flow of services. Finally, on a final note, I just want to share with you that going forward, yes, manufacturing will continue to be relevant. This country developed and prospered because we were able to transform Malaysia from an agricultural economy to an economy which has got a fairly good industrial base, manufacturing base. But going forward, there's no choice but to move more and more into services. Services means lawyers, architects, doctors, contractors, tourism. Going forward, that's the path we have decided to pursue. At present, we only 55% of our domestic economy comes from the service sector. Under the new economic model, by 2020, we want to increase to 65%. Countries like Singapore, for example, has got 70% of employment opportunities coming from the service sector. I met people running Suntec last Tuesday, for example. They were telling me they've got orders until 2022, 12 years down the line. They're already beginning to get orders for MICE, for conventions in Singapore. So that's services. Of course, the resort world, you have the casino and many other tourism. But for Malaysia to be successful in developing this economy, for Malaysia to be successful in increasing our incomes from 7,000 per capita to about 15,000 by 2020, we have to move more and more to services. Services means professionals like you. Services means we need to enhance our capacity. We need to promote what we have, our assets in this country. And manufacturing, of course, will continue to be relevant, but in terms of higher paying jobs, we'll talk about high income economy. The service sector is the way, the development of the service sector is the way forward. So ladies and gentlemen, Those are some thoughts I would like to leave with you this afternoon. In interest of time, I thought it's best for me to be as informal as possible. Yeah, although I've been asked to give a keynote address, but I thought first I started by sharing my experience in the past 1 week, beginning with what President Lee said about Malaysia and this warming up of relations between Malaysia and Singapore. There are lots of opportunities, yeah, in business, yeah, on both sides of the causeway. And I think we have to integrate more and more. We have done well in respect of trade. Trade is around 25%, intra-ASEAN trade. In investment, flows of investment, intra-ASEAN, we have done quite well, but not as well as trade. ASEAN is supposed to be a single production base. We're supposed to attract companies from abroad, FDI, to use ASEAN's single production base. We have 600 million people in ASEAN, as you know, and we're supposed to capitalize on that. On that front, we've not been as successful. For the first time this year, ASEAN economic ministers went to America to promote ASEAN as a single unit. In the past, we've been going separately, independently. I think it is true to say that we are competing against each other. Yeah? We hope one day we're going to promote ASEAN as a single entity. Yeah? We'll continue to compete with each other, yeah? Malaysia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand. But ideally, hopefully, in about 10 years' time, we can look at ASEAN as a single unit with better connectivity, with better flow of trade and services. And we believe there's going to be a lot of spin-offs. By having that kind of integration, young people are going to benefit. So, ladies and gentlemen, going forward, there's a lot of potential in ASEAN, and there's a lot of promise in ASEAN. But the challenge for us is to build our capacity. The challenge for us is to equip ourselves with the skills. The challenge for us is to continue this work of reducing obstacles to the flow of professionals between countries, the challenges there, and we believe there's going to be a lot of spin-off. There's going to be a lot of advantages by bringing down trade barriers, by removing movement obstacles, the movement of investment, and also the movement of people between movement of people and talent between countries in ASEAN. On that note, I would like to thank you once again for giving me this wonderful opportunity, and I hope you have benefited from this one-day seminar. And I've been told by the moderator that we have time, 15 minutes of Q&A. Thank you.